Namo Buddhaya to everyone, to Brother Siang Chai, Brother Benny, Sister Paru, to the organizing committee, and to you, the audience. Right. I've been asked to talk about mental strength and resilience from the medical perspective. So I'm going to approach this talk by asking and then answering three very important questions. The first question is, what is mental strength or resilience? Question number 2, what are the common traits that people with mental strength have? Question number 3, how then do we cultivate mental strength? How then do we make our mind strong? And since I have a lot of grounds to cover in the next 20 minutes or so, I will dive straight into question 1. What is mental strength or resilience? Mental resilience is defined as the ability to adapt well to adversity, trauma, tragedy, and threats, and any significant source of stress. It is our ability to bounce back from adversities and difficulties in life, and sometimes emerge even stronger and better than when we first started out. Take, for example, this COVID-19 pandemic that we are all in. It has been a physical threat to us. It is a threat to our very existence. It has threatened our mental well-being as well as our physical well-being. In addition, it has robbed us of a lot of things that we take for granted in our daily life. For example, we now have lost the freedom to move freely. We now have lost the freedom to mix with people as and when we want. And we have even lost our financial security. For a lot of people, they have lost their jobs. And for many more, they are hanging on to their jobs by a tiny thread, not knowing when they will still have a job or not when the pandemic is over. Right. And Sister Paru also has shared with us her own personal tragedies in her talk. Right. So these are difficult times. So how is it that some people are able to cope well in this kind of adverse situations while others cannot? Well, studies have shown that the deciding factor is not actually the adverse event itself. It's not what happens outside. What is important and the main contributing factor to whether you succeed or not is what is inside here, in our mind. It's our mindset. It's our beliefs about ourselves and the world we live in. It is about the mental habits that we already have within us. Right? People with certain kind of mental traits and qualities are able to withstand and cope better in adverse times than others. And that brings me to the second question. What are some of the common traits that people with mental strength have? And for that, the first and most important mental trait is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to be aware of our own thoughts and feelings. It is being mindful of our thoughts and feelings. This is important because with the ability to be aware of our thoughts and feelings, we have self-knowledge. With this self-understanding and self-knowledge, we are then able to know our own strengths and weaknesses and to overcome those weaknesses. That's why self-awareness is the key trait in anybody who is mentally strong. The second trait is emotional regulation. Emotional regulation here refers to our ability to manage our emotion well. It's emotional intelligence, EQ. And most importantly, we must be able to manage our negative emotions. Things like anger, fear, anxiety, depression. These are the negative emotions during this time, this difficult time, that we must manage well. It is particularly important now. So emotional regulation is trait number 2. Trait number 3 is realistic assessment of the situation. What this means is we are able to differentiate facts from fiction, accurate, truthful information from fake news. We are able to also separate our own prejudices and our own dramatizing things from what is actual, so that we are able to see things clearly and therefore can respond appropriately to the situation. Right? Then come trait number 4. Trait number 4 is the willpower and the courage to endure these difficult times. Right? During this difficult time, we need to persevere, to have that determination to carry on despite the difficulties. And trait number 5 is the ability to focus. What this means is we have the ability to focus on what is good and not what is bad, what is positive, not what is negative, what we can do instead of what we cannot do, what we have instead of what we have lost. So this ability to focus is very important, not just during time of adversity, but it is important for anyone who wants to succeed in life. In fact, a whole book has been written about this topic on focus. And to me, these 5 traits are the essential traits that anyone with mental strength must have in order to cope. Once you have these 5 traits, there are a list of other positive traits that they also have, but they will fall into place because you have these 5 traits. For example, you can have another trait where you have high self-regard, self-esteem, and self-confidence. But that comes because once you have this self-knowledge, you know your own strengths and weaknesses, the confidence comes naturally. Right? Then trait number 7, flexibility of mind. This is the ability to adapt to change and the ability to have creative solution. So you have to have the ability to think outside the box. And trait number 8 is the ability of these people to establish strong relationship and bonds with people around them, their family members, their friends, and their colleagues. In fact, studies have shown that this last trait, the ability to create strong bonds with people, is most crucial at the times when you are at your knees, when you are unable to cope, because this is the time when they are there to support you, to encourage you, to help you back onto your feet. This is what Sister Paru was referring to when she said that as a Buddhist community, we must come forward to reach out to those who are in need. It is an important and crucial factor for anyone who is down, because this is the one that first helped them to get back on their feet. And that brings us to question number 3. How do we cultivate mental strength? How do we make our mind stronger and better than before? Well, the first step is actually this strong relationship which we just talked about. Because when you are down and out, when you don't feel that you have the energy to carry on, your family members, your friends who are there to support you, to encourage you, they are the ones who will help to get you back on your feet. So it's crucially important. So let's hope our Buddhist family will provide this support when the time comes, when someone needs it. Then step number 2 that we need to take is self-care. This is to care for ourselves both physically and mentally. Physically, we must take care of our diet, our nutrition. We must make sure that we drink enough water so that we are well hydrated. We must also make sure that we do our exercise. Even if we can't do exercise outdoor because of all these restrictions, we can do some simple exercise indoor. And also we need to get our rest and sleep. Now in difficult times like this, sometimes we may have a lot of worries and we think too much so that it disturbs our ability to fall asleep. This is when we need to take care of our mind too. And what this means is we need to slow down our thinking, to distract our negative mind to something more positive or neutral. In this aspect, one of the ways that you can do to calm your mind is actually chanting. Chanting helps us to take our mind from the negative to something that is either neutral or positive. And if we focus on our chanting properly, we can actually come out with a calm and clear mind. Right? And that would give us a chance to see our problem clearly, more realistically. Right? Also, in this difficult time, it is important to remind ourselves to have self-compassion. That means we need to be kind and gentle to ourselves. Very often, we are unkind to ourselves, but kind to other people. It seems that it is difficult to be kind to ourselves, but it's easier for us to be kind to others and to animals. Well, now is the time for you to be kind to yourself, to give yourself gentle encouragement and words of kindness. Right? Remember this. This is an important self-care. Right? Step number 3, we have to cultivate a positive mindset. How do we do that? We have to start looking at things from a different perspective, have a paradigm shift. Brother Benny has talked about the 3 characteristics of life: suffering, the impermanence, and non-self. Right? In good times, actually, when we talk about suffering, a lot of people think, why is Buddhism so pessimistic? But it is exactly in difficult times like this that actually, when we reflect on these 3 characteristics of life, we see some hope, some redemption, and we can be optimistic. Why do I say that? Because when we reflect on the universality of suffering, that all human beings share the same suffering, then we feel it's not so bad. Then we reflect that this suffering too is impermanent. This too shall pass. This suffering shall pass. And therefore, it makes us feel that there is hope, that the end will come. Right? And we look at suffering in a non-personal way, in an impersonal way, so that we don't see that we are singled out to suffer. Right? A little bit of shift can provide a lot of hope and optimism in this case. Right. Also, we need to see that sometimes in this kind of adversity, there are opportunities. Like Sister Paru says, try something new. You never know. You could actually succeed in something new. In fact, it is a good opportunity for some people to change the direction of their life totally. Right? So, look at it as an opportunity as well. Also, to make sure that we have positive mental attitude, remember, we need to train our focus, to focus on what is good, to focus on what we can do, to focus on what we have. In other words, we need to learn to be grateful for what we already have. There are 3 ways we can remind ourselves to be grateful. The first thing is to be grateful for the things that are going right in our life. Despite this pandemic, there are a lot of things that are still going right in our life. Be grateful for that. Then, be grateful for the things that do not go wrong. What do I mean by that? Every day we still go to work. We travel to and fro. The fact that we reach our workplace safely, we didn't meet with an accident, or we didn't have a punctured tire, or we didn't meet with a roadblock that prevent us from getting to work. These are things that could have gone wrong, but we take them for granted when we reach there. So the things that do not go wrong is something also we can take for granted. We can take as to be grateful for. Right? And lastly, we can even be grateful for things that have gone wrong, but we learn a lesson from it, a valuable lesson from it. So learn to be grateful. Tune our mind to be grateful. Okay? These are the ways you can make your mind a bit more positive. Then step number 4, we need to recognize and be aware of our irrational thoughts that are not realistic. beliefs that are no longer serving us, and our old mental habits that are actually a stumbling block to our progress instead of helping us. Right? Each time we are able to catch our thought, we should ask ourselves these important questions. Is my thinking helping or harming me? If your thinking is helping you, continue on. But if your thinking is harming you, it is time you change it, replace it, challenge that thinking. Right? In this way, you can change irrational thoughts into something more positive and beneficial to you. That is step number 4. And finally, step number 5, we have mentioned before. Find a new purpose, a new passion, a new interest. Try something new, like what Sister Paru said. Okay, so these are the 5 steps that we can take to cultivate and strengthen our mind. Step number 1, support from friends and family when we are down. Step number 2, self-care, both body and mind. Step number 3, positive mindset. See things differently. Look for opportunity. Be grateful. Step number 4, recognize irrational thoughts that are no longer serving us. Change them. Replace them. And step number 5, find a new purpose, a new goal, a new passion, a new interest. Right? So in summary, actually, what we have been discussing is inner transformation of our mind. We do not need to change anything externally outside of us, which we cannot control anyway. But what we can do is to control what is within us, our mind. So this inner transformation is the key to coping with any kind of adversity. In fact, this inner transformation is what the Buddha regarded as true miracle. This is the only true miracle the Buddha regarded, right? Not miracles performed by psychic power. The Buddha reminds us that a man who is able to conquer himself is superior to a king who has conquered 1,000 battles. Right? And if we continue to work on our mind, to purify it, to transform it, we are actually following the advice of all the Buddhas, avoiding evil, doing good, and purifying the mind. Right? And as Buddhists, we are already familiar with all the tools that are necessary for these transformations. We have mindfulness practice. Mindfulness practice is our tool to be aware of our thoughts and feelings. Right? We have discernment, the ability or the practice of seeing things as they really are. This helps us to see things and assess things realistically, and therefore able to come up with the appropriate solution. Right? We have the practice of acceptance, accepting the things that cannot be changed. And then we have the practice of letting go of the things in our mind that are no longer serving us. So these are the tools that we as Buddhists are very familiar with. And therefore, there is no excuse for us to not put them all into practice. Especially in difficult times like this, we need them. Right? And that brings to the conclusion of my talk. And with that, I wish you good health, happiness, and peace of mind.